Hi guys, for those of you who've been waiting to sort of see us, I apologise for being late. We've had obviously some technical issues here. Facebook and YouTube did not want to log in, and my computer died tonight, and so anyway, we're here. So tonight, I wanted to talk to you. I want to talk to you about young horses, and I've just finished running just a one-day horsemanship clinic on the weekend on Saturday, and there's some interesting things that came up along the way, and I thought it'd be really good just to briefly maybe talk about some of the ideas that we talked about there and did. So young horses, I think one of the biggest things about young horses is that you're setting the path for them from the beginning, and that takes skill, that takes knowledge and skill, and it's not something you want to be learning on. So if you're still really learning about horses and riding and all the things that we all need to learn, I suppose a young horse is not where you want to go, because a young horse is like a young child. They need someone who has the knowledge. They need someone who has the ideas and the plan, and they know what they're doing, and to show that horse what to do. And it takes many years to turn a new unstarted horse into a good, safe, reliable riding horse. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that once the professional, someone starts the horse for them, and that person's up and riding them, and then they have a few rides, they have this idea that then they'll just be able to take it off to shows and go riding, trial riding, and just keep on going. And unfortunately, it's just not true. And you just have to watch people like Buck and Steve and Manolo and all those guys who do a lot of young horse starting, and they make it look really easy. They really do, and it's a little off-putting, but they make it look so easy because they've done so much of it and they're so good at it. But when the normal average person like us, we get on those horses and they've just finished riding them and trotting them and canning them and doing those things, and we hop on and we feel this horse that it doesn't steer, it doesn't go straight, it won't go forward very well, it feels like it doesn't stop very easily, it feels like it's going to jump underneath you all the time. And these are all just the normal young horse feelings that a young horse has. And it takes a good rider to be able to take a green horse and transform it into a horse that anybody can ride. So it's if you're thinking about wanting to start your own horse, or even just ride a young horse and it's been started by somebody else and you're going to continue on, you really got to think about, what are you getting yourself into? And you've got to really feel, I suppose, confident that you have enough knowledge and skill to offer a young horse to bring it on up to a normal riding horse. So I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, but I think people need to go into it with their eyes really open about how big a job this is, how big a deal this is. It's a pretty big job. It really is, and it's exactly like, I suppose you're going to take on a new child and adopt or have a baby. It's like, this is not a small deal. This is a big deal. This is a big job. It's going to take many years of work, a lot of work. You need to be prepared to devote, hopefully at least 3 to 4 days a week riding, a minimum hour originally each time, hopefully even more, if you want to really move that horse along and get it to the point of being a good riding horse, or useful horse, safe horse. So some of the things that I think are really important for people to think about for riding young horses or green horses is the groundwork. I think is even more important for green horses than for any other horse, because I think the majority of people out there who are my students or who I meet are generally older people who have been in riding or ridden horses as younger, and they've come back into horses again a bit older, maybe after kids, and we realize we're a bit more mortal than we used to be as younger people. And I certainly know that feeling after falling and breaking bones myself as I get a bit older. And So it's really important that, I suppose, what we used to be able to do as a child or a younger person, we probably can't do now as a more mature person, because we're a bit more mortal. We have a family. We realize we can't be hurt. We realize we don't bounce as well as we used to. We know we could get injured. So all those factors start coming into play in our minds, which changes how we ride. And it's great watching young kids do what they do, because they have no fear. They have no understanding of what the risks are, and they just go out and do things, and it's fantastic. But as we get older, we just don't have that anymore. So we have to have other techniques and ideas of how we can move forward, particularly when we're having problems. And I think one of the most critical things is for people is to understand and get their head around why we're doing groundwork. And I see a lot of people doing groundwork, and they're doing it and sort of maybe going through the motions. And you send the horse on a circle, you do a bit of trotting, go left, go right, and they're doing it. But I think they're forgetting or missing the reason why you do the groundwork. Because for me, a lot of the times, if I don't need to do groundwork, I don't do it. I get the horse out, I brush him, I saddle him, and I'd say, well, we're just going to ride. I'm going to make a judgment call and say, I don't need to do groundwork with you today. We're just going to spend it. I haven't got a lot of time. I'm just going to ride. I'm just going to work on riding today. Now, sometimes that bites me. Maybe sometimes I pay for that. I go, okay, yep. After the ride, it's like, yeah, okay, I should do groundwork with this horse, because the horse needs the groundwork. And sometimes it's go, yeah, we had a great ride. I didn't do any groundwork. I just saddled you up, moved around a bit, hopped on, and off we went. That's really important. I think you can get a horse to that point that you don't need groundwork before you can ride them, because it's sort of like them graduating out of kindergarten school. And that's important to do, because particularly if your horse is a working horse, it's something you use for the stock for cattle, for sheep, or for working other horses as part of your job. You need to get that horse to the point where you don't need to do groundwork to get it ready or safe so you can ride. I think it's really important that you can do that. Now, groundwork might make that horse really much better. So maybe in a perfect world, or given enough time, you would choose to do groundwork first before you rode, because it makes your riding better. If that's the truth, then that's smart. Do it. But we don't always have that luxury of that amount of time. So it's good to be able to have the horse at a mental point where you don't need groundwork to be able to safely ride. But with most green or young horses, unstarted horses especially, they all need groundwork, because the groundwork is there to build their confidence. It's there to teach them what you want to do under saddle or riding them, but without your weight on their back influencing or getting in their way. Because I think for a horse, having us on their back is sort of like when we carry a small child on our shoulders. If that child just sits there and just is nice and still, it's pretty easy. You can just walk around and they just sit there, and you can balance them, and it's not a big deal. But as you're walking along, and suddenly the kid starts throwing their weight around, going, "Hey, what's that over there, Dad? What's that over there?" And they lean and look, and you can feel that child looking to fall off, and you sort of got to catch them and get underneath them and hold them. That becomes a full-time job. And with us, it's not scary, but it takes a lot of effort not to let them fall off you. So and horses, because obviously we can't talk to them. If we start doing that or moving in a way that they feel like we're causing them to be unbalanced, that scares them. And the more I ride young horses, the more I've discovered that, and truly believe that, when horses are out of balance, that's the biggest thing that scares them, is they're out of balance. And so groundwork, I think, is a good way of checking out and establishing how balanced they are. Walk, trot, and canter. When they go through those gaits, what is their balance like? Do they stay in balance, and their weight is very evenly distributed, and their feet are underneath them, and they walk, trot, and canter on a nice big rein, and they can go around you? Or are they unbalanced? Are they slipping and falling over? Are they falling onto their shoulders and accelerating? Are they falling into the circle or out of the circle? Are they flexed correctly or counterflexed? a whole bunch of things you could see that would tell you that horse is in balance or out of balance. And so let's just assume that as you're working them and you decide, well, they're out of balance. Now just imagine then that we could click our fingers and put a rider on the horse's back. Without a rider, you already said the horse was out of balance. We now put a rider on their back. Is that going to make it easier or harder for the horse, do we think? My answer, it's going to make it harder, because they're having great difficulty just balancing themselves, walking or trotting or cantering around. It's going to be 10 times harder now for them to do that and manage by having another person, this extra weight on their back that maybe, a really good rider or maybe not be. And even the best rider in the world is still going to make it more difficult for that horse to do what they got to do if they're already struggling without a rider. So there's a saying I now have of, influence without interference. And that came from Tanya Mitten. That was something she said to me. And I totally agree with her. As a rider, our primary goal should be to get to the point where we can influence the horse without interfering. And that's really hard to do. So coming back to our young horse or green horse story, groundwork for me is about assessing their balance and then doing exercises or spending the time to develop their balance and hopefully improve their balance. So at the beginning of your session, walking, trotting, a little bit of canter, and you watch them and they were obviously out of balance. They were falling onto their shoulders, they were accelerating, they couldn't maintain a nice easy pace or rhythm, it kept changing. They were falling into the circles, the circles getting smaller, or they're falling out of the circles. So they're leaning on your lead rope or whatever you're using to groundwork them. And so they're leaning on it because they're falling out of the circle. All of that for me it's just a representation of how balanced they are. And it's perfectly normal for your young horse to have bad balance, because it's not normal for those horses to canter small circles. And a 20-meter circle for a green horse is a small circle. Forget your 10 meters or 15, 20 meters is small for them. So out in the paddock, they can do what they want, and they do. And even then, sometimes they slip over, you're watching them. So when we start lunging them and doing our groundwork and teaching them to turn, to stop, and to follow a feel and move from energy, then I think it's really important that we pay particular attention to how their balance is, and that's tells you, I suppose, at what point are they ready to be ridden. Because if a horse is still having a great difficulty maintaining its own balance, walk, trot, and canter, well then why would I want to be on its back? I accept the fact that me being on its back is going to make this job harder. So if it's already really struggling to stay in balance, why be up there? So spend the time developing its balance. Spend the time helping that horse to improve its balance. Maybe it needs to be shown, posture, rhythm. So is its head too high, too low? Is it falling onto its shoulders? Is it pulling itself along its front end? Is it driving from the back end? Is it intrinsically worried or pushy? What side of the spectrum is that horse operating from its emotions? So is it a worried horse over on this side of the world, or is its mind over more on this side of pushy and confident? And depending on what side of the pendulum that horse is, that dictates what attitude you're going to take, what speed you're going to move with, how much time you're going to give that horse. So a pushy, confident horse, you probably want to maybe make it a little more snappy and get it paying more attention to you. Get it sort of more bit tuned into you. The more worried horse, you probably want to give it more time to relax, give it more time to process, give it more time to think, because it's already worried. And if you get quicker or bring the energy up too quick, you're going to scare it even more. So it's really critical to know, well, what side of this pendulum or coin is this horse operating from the worried side or from the more confident, pushy side. And at the end of the day, your main goal should always to be bring it back to the middle, bring it back to this middle state of perfection. It's emotionally, it's not scared and it's not pushy. It's right in the middle, and it's really confident. And so your groundwork is about assessing that. Your groundwork is about spending that time and looking at it and going, okay, you're worried. I can see you're worried. Your eye, the way you move, the way you're breathing, everything's telling me that you're worried. So me as the trainer, my job is to build your confidence. And so you have to now operate in a way that it's building its confidence. So going maybe slower, backing off, physically turning away from the horse and just walking away and getting that horse to follow you a little bit. That might be just enough to help build that horse's confidence that you're not going to eat it, you're not a predator. In fact, we are, but we're trying to convince the horse that we're not. And start getting that horse thinking about it could listen to us and maybe try some of the ideas we're trying to offer it. Now, you might also have a horse who's more really pushy, really confident. He's been around humans all his life. He's been reared since he was a baby by humans, so he has no fear of humans, but he's pushy. He goes, yeah, mum, she brings me food. I love her, but I'm in charge. That's the thoughts running through his little brain. And so they're the horses that you need to get a little tougher on. You need to use a little bit more discipline, a little bit more, hey, you need to watch me, boyo. You need to watch me or there's a consequence. I'm going to bite you. Chomp. And that's your lead rope or your stick or whatever it is you're using. Because in the herd, that's what happens. They're not scared of each other. They might watch number one horse. They might go, oh God, I've got to stay away from that one because she bites me all the time. She kicks me if I get too close. Because she does. It's like, little buggers, stay away from me. I don't like you. She has that attitude, but that's not fear. That's like, yeah, I know not to push that one. And that's how sometimes it is with grandparents or teachers and things like that. There's that authority figure. Is like some people just got it just right, that they're not scared of them, but they also know don't muck around with me. Okay, it's important, and that's what herd leader is all about. It's like herd leaders, you need to watch me. I'll keep you safe. You don't want to muck around with me. Okay, you don't want to push on me, and that's what you really need with young horses. So we can be friends later on. We'll develop this relationship and we'll become really good friends and learn to really love each other and all that stuff that we all want with our horse. That's important. But in the beginning, they need to listen to us. And it's really important that they listen to me because I'll keep you safe. I know what's going on in this world of humans. You don't. You're just a horse. You're just reacting and jumping around and making snap decisions. You don't know what's happening. So you need to listen to me. You need to take your cue from me. I will look after you. I will set the plan. I will do all the things to keep you safe, and me, eventually, when we get on your back. But that friendship, it's good if you have it, but it's more important that they listen to you. And sometimes with young horses, they don't want to listen to you because they've spent their whole life in the paddock eating grass and having fun with their friends. And now it's like, I'm away from my friends and you ask me to do things and then get the scary saddle on me and I don't like this and I'm going to show you my displeasure, which is kicking out and running off and squealing and it's like, you might not be doing anything wrong. It's just the horse now playing up about he's in school. He's spent his life at home and now he's been brought to school. He's been dropped off by mum and he doesn't like it. It's like, what? I got to sit down. I got to pay attention. Oh, no way. I'm out of here. And that's what some young horses have because it's not fear. They've been raised with humans. There's been your baby since it was born. It has no fear of you. But he doesn't want to work with you. He doesn't want to listen to you. He's giving you attitude. He's kicking out. He's running off. He's not standing still. You can't brush him properly. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? It's like, we should be he should love me. I've hand read him. It's like, well, that's got nothing to do with it. And I very intentionally, I'm not using the word respect because for some reason, most people, most humans, when we say the word respect, most people get this thing that I got to get stronger, I got to get tougher, I got to get respect, and that's not the case. What you've got to somehow find a way of doing is that horse looking at you the same way he looks at number one horse in his paddock. That's respect. That look he gives whichever horse is in the paddock is number one horse in your herd. That's what you got to get with yourself from your little horse. And if you watch what that horse does in the paddock, it's not about just beating them up. Getting tough is part of it. Keeping your promises is critical. That horse in the paddock, when it gives that look to that young horse and says, "Hey, dude, move," ears go back, nose goes out. Split second later, if that horse hasn't moved, there's a consequence. Chomp, bite, kick, it's a consequence. And they're following through. They're aiming to get that horse. There's no two ways about it. So that interaction in the paddock, that's something they've been doing since the day they were born. Playing these games with each other, being moved around, moving other horses around, seeing who yields from who. These are all the normal interactions, training, games, whatever word you want to use, but this is the normal herd behaviors that they've been doing their entire life, and it's hardwired into them to respond from body language, and it's hardwired in there to push on pressure and to yield from pressure, and particularly when the horse in charge goes, "Hey, you move now," and if that horse in charge has done it correctly, it's like before they fold up the consequence, chomp, chomp. But now I said move, whoop, yep, the horse moves. They don't wait to get kicked. They don't wait for the bite. It's like, yep, I'm moving. And they're happy about it because they're happy about where they are in the social structure. They're happy that, yep, I am number 4 in the pecking order. That's where I am. And what you'd like in your own little herd of horses is each horse is comfortable with where they are. And I know in our paddocks, there's 3 horses out there at the moment, and 1, 2, and 3 is firmly established. And come feed time, they know where they go for their food. 1, 2, and 3 just go to their spots. As long as I feed them in the right order, there's no problems. But if I make a mistake, or if for some reason I decide I'm going to feed number 3 horse first and go to number 3rd spot and feed that one, well, number 1 horse goes to number 3 spot. Now number 3rd horse gets all worried because that's my food spot. I'm not allowed to go to eat over here. That's number 1 horse's spot. I've now put your food over there. And so it destroys the whole dynamics, and everyone gets upset because now they've got to reestablish who's eating first, who's eating where. And that's where all the argy-bargy kicks in. So again, we're trying to get that back to us. I need to be number 1 horse. I'm the one who needs to move everyone around. I'm the one you need to watch and take your cue from me. You need to listen to me. What does Dave want? What do you want? And you're with your young horse, you're trying to get their little brains to look at you, go, well, what do you want? What are we doing? What are we doing? And hopefully they're looking at you without fear. They go, oh, they're going to eat me, they're going to eat me, they're going to eat me. If that's in their eye, and sometimes it is, through no fault of your own, it's like that they're just looking at you going, oh, not enough handling. Maybe you bought this young horse from somewhere else, and here it is, and then it's just like it's on a new property, it's no friends, and there's this human here, and it's like going through its little mind is just this little go. It's just fear. It's thoughts of fear. So your job is to recognize that, and now use techniques and training to try and build its confidence, build this connection, and get it looking at you, going, oh, boss is here. Cool, I can relax. Because that's what happens in the paddock. You take boss horse out of that herd. If you could just snap your fingers and take boss horse out, everyone gets upset. We've all seen it. We take the number 1 horse out for a ride or something, and the rest of the herd runs around like idiots for the full 2 hours while you're out riding, and you come back and they're calling out, and you unsaddle and put your horse back in. Everyone rushes up and they all nuzzle each other and say, oh, thank goodness you came back. Oh, we were so terrified without you. And then what does that horse do? It's like, yep, and then chomps everybody and pushes them all around. Because that's what number 1 horse does. It reestablishes who's in charge, reestablishes I'm here, watch me, pay attention, and pushes everyone around, bites, kicks, everyone scatters, and then they settle down, and it's all back, it's all smooth again. And that's just normal. And that's what we need to do sometimes. And sometimes you need to be strong and be boss horse and push them around and get them listening. And then sometimes you be quiet. and do a bit of nuzzling and do a bit of grazing and go a little slow and let everyone just chill. And you need to mix it. And the way you mix it, well, that's the art. And that's where you make mistakes. And so that's where it comes back to, where you don't want to be learning this, basics yourself with a young horse, because they pick this up so fast. And if you're still learning the basic skills of how to move a horse around and teach them how to follow feel and move from pressure and just the basic stuff that we all learn, you're going to make mistakes, and those mistakes, well, your horse is going to pay for. So you're much better off trying to learn this stuff on a more established horse, because the patterns are already in that horse, hopefully, and so they're a lot harder to change. Whereas a young green horse who really hasn't had much work and much patterns, well, you're setting them and they pick it up like a sponge. And unfortunately, if you just make a few mistakes in the learning process yourself, well, they learn that, and then it takes a lot more time to undo. So my advice to nearly everybody is, if you have a real desire to work with young horses and maybe even start your own horse, which is just fine, learn this stuff on an older horse first. A horse that's already going along nicely and has already knows some things. Make your mistakes on that older horse. He'll be a lot more forgiving to you, because you can make the mistakes and it won't go in as deep into his brain, into his patterns as a young horse. They're a lot more forgiving. Learn it, make your mistakes, learn from your mistakes, get much better. And then once you think you have enough, confidence and knowledge that you think, yeah, now I think I could, help a young horse move on to this point. Well, now that's what you do. And there's a bit of a saying, when it comes to starting horses, is that, you sort of wreck your first 3 or 4 horses. And it's true, because it takes you 3 or 4 horses to get to the point where you start realizing what you need to know. And I can certainly attest to that. And some people say maybe your first 10 horses. It just depends on you and depends on the horses you've had and your experience you get. But it takes more than one before you know what you need to know. It takes a few horses, a few different types of horses, because they're all different. And you need to have lots of different ideas available to offer that young horse, because they change. One moment he's acting scared, next he's acting pushy, and then he's just not doing anything at all. And you got to know what's going on, and you got to have an answer to all his questions. And right in the moment, you can't stop and go, well, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow and we'll talk about that. And you need to know that as the horse is doing it, so you can keep working with him. So working with as many different horses as you can is probably really important, and following somebody and an instructor who has a program or who can offer you this sort of information access to, so you can have lessons with them, is probably critical, especially if you are starting a young horse, because it's very easy to go down the wrong path or start going down the wrong path. You've missed something, and you're sort of doing this because you think it's right. And hopefully someone's more experienced can see what you're doing and go, well, no, let's stop this. Let's change this up, because I know where that path leads. I've been down it myself before, and it's that's the wrong path you want to be taking, because I know where it leads. If you've never been down that path, you don't know it leads to a dead end. And that's time wasted, and more importantly, it's a mistake that you now have to undo out of your young horse. So it doesn't take many repetitions of a pattern to set into their brain, and it takes 10 times as many times to change a pattern in their brain. So make mistakes with your older horse. Learn from as many different horses as you can. Find someone that you can physically get contact with from an instructor's point of view, I suppose. It's great to follow Buck Brannaman or Tom Dorrance or one of those fantastic guys, but it's very hard to get access to them, especially one-on-one time. So follow their methodologies, absolutely, but also try and find a local instructor who maybe is also sympathetic to those methods, but you can actually physically get to work with, because nothing replaces one-on-one training. You being with another instructor with your horse, and they can see you working and see what you're doing, your patterns, your habits, the horse's patterns and habits, and they can go, yep, that's good, that's not. You need to change that. You're going too fast here. You're going too slow there. And hopefully they're giving you the benefit of their knowledge and their past mistakes so you don't make them. And that's why you have a teacher. Teachers are there to teach you from their mistakes. And with anything, doesn't matter what it is, horses, singing, music, you learn by your mistakes. But sometimes you don't know you've made a mistake. And I suppose that's the difference between the beginner and the more advanced, or the teacher, is that the teacher hopefully realizes the second they've made a mistake. You're riding a horse and something happened and you go, oh, yep, that was me. I was out of balance. And so you correct it. You realize it, you correct it, and you start again. You do that, whatever you're doing, that little pattern, you might do it again, and hopefully you don't make the same mistake again. And you ride through that where the mistake was, it gets better, and you go, yep, we got it, fantastic, moving on. Whereas the more beginner person is they're doing exactly the same thing and they made the same mistake and they didn't realize they made the mistake. The horse did, something changed, and the horse fell out of balance, dropped its shoulder, whatever. But the rider didn't realize. And a lot of the times your newer riders and your greener riders, they don't realize the mistakes are happening until they become glaringly obvious. And I think that's one of the big differences when you watch people who are new or green compared to the more advanced, is that your advanced rider generally feels and realizes that the smallest of mistakes, we still make them, may still make them, but they realize it, they correct it, and they try and move on. Whereas your more greener rider, they don't realize they've made mistakes until the mistake's much bigger. And so the mistake's always been there. And it's just they keep missing it because they haven't got the experience, they haven't got the knowledge, and they haven't had the mistakes of learning from them. So going to an instructor, especially for young horses and green horses, they can help you. That they can tell you, hey, that little movement you just missed, that was the drop shoulder. You need to pick up on that sooner, because that's your horse changing its balance, falling out of balance. And you go, oh, you mean that little thing you just felt? Yeah, that was it. I can see it from the ground. Your horse felt it because I saw the horse change, but you missed it. And if someone can tell you those things, well, you can move, not make a whole bunch of things wrong, which you may have otherwise done. So you can never have too many lessons. You can never see your teacher too many times, especially with a young horse. So again, I apologize for being late for our little discussion, technical issues, and we'll try and hopefully get the main computer up and running again for next week. So if you have any questions, or you think things you'd like me to actually specifically talk about, please feel free to email them to me at davidmellor7@bigpond.com, or send it to me on a Facebook message. So I'm on Facebook on David Mellor or David Mellor Horsemanship. And we're running a spring special at the moment. If you want, you haven't had a lesson with me, or even if you have, but for spring, you can come and have a $50 lesson, a private lesson. Normally my lessons are $80 for the hour. For spring, for one lesson, so call it maybe an introductory lesson or a welcome to spring lesson, but instead of $80, it's $50. And if you'd like to take us up on this offer, just send me an email when you call this. Like to use the spring special, please, Dave, and it's $50. So you get to use it once, and after that it's back to the regular price. But for spring, we're running a special for you. So if you have any questions about anything, you can always email me, you can phone me anytime. We're obviously we're on Facebook, and we're on the website at davidmellor.com.au. And hopefully we will catch up with you at some lessons or some clinics in the future. Thanks a lot.